The first time Elias Mercer saw Princess Sereth of Valkera, she was standing alone at the far end of the Grand Concord Hall, shackled in ceremonial chains made of black crystal. No music played for her arrival. No banners unfurled. The delegates of 12 star systems leaned away from her as if the air itself around her carried disease. Elias had fought in orbital wars, survived vacuum exposure, and watched ships burn with friends still inside, but none of that prepared him for the silence that followed her name. "The Cursed Princess," someone whispered. Sereth's people, the Valkyrie, were tall, bioluminescent beings whose skin usually glowed with soft blues and golds. Sereth's glow was different, fractured, flickering, as if light itself struggled to remain within her. Veins of dark energy traced beneath her translucent skin, pulsing slowly, ominously. She looked broken. Elias stood among the human delegation, hands clasped behind his back, wearing a formal uniform that still felt like a costume. Humanity was new to the galactic Concord, new enough to be underestimated, but useful enough to be invited, useful enough to be sacrificed. "The Concord has reached its decision," intoned the Arbiter drone, hovering above the chamber. "Princess Sereth of Valkera will be bound in political union to a representative of humanity." The chamber erupted. Protests from the Valkyrie elders. Mutters of outrage from other species. A few poorly hidden expressions of relief. Relief that the curse would no longer be their problem. Elias felt his stomach drop. He hadn't volunteered. He hadn't even been consulted. The Arbiter continued, mercilessly calm. "This union fulfills Clause 7, the transference of existential risk to a willing allied species. Humanity has demonstrated resilience." That word again. Resilience. It always meant the same thing. You break slower than the rest. Elias stepped forward before anyone else could be selected. "I'll do it." The hall went quiet again, this time in disbelief. General Harrow spun toward him. "Mercer, what the hell?" Elias didn't look back. He was staring at Sereth now. She was staring at him too. Her eyes were vast and luminous, shot through with strands of darkness that writhed like slow smoke. Fear lived there, but beneath it, sharp, contained, furious intelligence. She wasn't a monster. She was a prisoner. The curse. They told him everything during the transit to Valkera. Sereth had been born normal, brilliant even by Valkyrie standards. A prodigy in psionic harmonics, destined to become a planetary voice, one who could stabilize entire biospheres through empathic resonance. Then the anomaly appeared. An ancient relic unearthed beneath Valkera's polar crust, older than recorded galactic history. It reacted to Sereth's mind, bonded with her. No one knew why. The relic infused her with an unstable form of entropy-based psionics. She could unravel matter, disrupt energy fields, destabilize minds, without trying. Entire cities evacuated when her emotions spiked. Ships failed when she cried. People died when she lost control. So they called her cursed, locked her away. And when the Concord demanded Valkera resolve the threat, they chose marriage over execution. A living containment strategy. Elias listened in silence as the diplomat spoke. When they finished, he asked only one question. "Has anyone asked her what she wants?" No one answered. The bride and the prisoner. Their wedding took place beneath Valkera's twin suns, in a garden surrounded by force fields thick enough to stop a battleship round. Sereth wore ceremonial armor instead of a gown, black and silver plates etched with ancient symbols meant to bind rather than celebrate. Her restraints were disguised as jewelry. Elias hated that. He wore no weapons, no restraints, just the simple band of alloy that marked him as human. When the ritual concluded, Sereth leaned close, her voice barely audible. You should have let them kill me. Elias met her gaze. Not my style. You don't understand, she said. Everyone I get close to suffers. Good thing I'm stubborn. That earned him a flicker of surprise, and something dangerously close to a smile. They were escorted to the Obsidian Spire, a remote fortress palace built to isolate her from the world. Automated systems. Emergency failsafes. Entire wings designed to collapse if she lost control. A home built like a tomb. Their first weeks were awkward, tense, and quiet. Sareth expected fear. Elias gave her space. She expected commands. He asked questions. Slowly, painfully, she began to talk. About the voices she heard when the relic stirred. About the pressure inside her mind, like holding back a star with bare hands. About the guilt of knowing her existence endangered everyone. Elias listened. Sometimes he talked too, about Earth, about rebuilding after wars, about humanity's strange ability to bond through shared suffering. You're not afraid of me, she said one night, watching him from across the chamber. I am, Elias admitted, but fear doesn't mean I leave. That was the moment something shifted. The breaking point. The Concord didn't trust peace. They sent observers, scientists, military analysts. They pushed tests, probes, controlled stressors. Sareth endured until one day, she couldn't. The relic surged. The sky above the spire fractured with violet lightning. Gravity twisted. Systems failed. Valkyrie Command ordered orbital bombardment authorization. Elias ran toward her. He found Sareth collapsed at the heart of the spire, energy tearing free from her body, reality warping around her screams. I can't stop it, she cried. Get away from me. Instead, Elias grabbed her. The pain was immediate, searing, mind-rending, like being exposed to raw entropy. His memories flickered. His thoughts blurred. But he held on. Then we don't stop it, he gasped. We ride it out. Together. Something impossible happened. The relic stabilized. Not suppressed. Balanced. Sareth's power didn't vanish, it aligned. Tuned itself to Elias's presence, his neural patterns, his emotional steadiness. The storm calmed. When it ended, they lay on the floor, breathing hard. You're alive, Sareth whispered. So are you, Elias said. Guess we make a good system. The scientists were stunned. The Concord was terrified. The choice. The truth became undeniable. Sareth was never cursed. She was incomplete. The relic required a counterbalance, something humanity possessed in abundance. Adaptive chaos. Emotional resilience. The ability to endure contradiction without breaking. Together, they formed a closed circuit. Stable. Powerful. Dangerous to the old order. The Concord demanded separation. Claimed the bond was unnatural. Valkyra hesitated. Sareth didn't. This marriage was meant to be my cage, she said before the assembly. Instead, it became my freedom. If you try to take him from me, you will learn exactly how uncursed I truly am. Elias stood beside her, hand in hers. Humanity backed her. So did several other species, those tired of fear-based rule. The Concord fractured. A different kind of ending. Years later, the Obsidian Spire was no longer a prison.
It was a research sanctuary.
A diplomatic hub. A symbol. Sareth became Valkyra's greatest voice, not through suppression, but harmony. Elias became something no human had ever been before, consort to a being who could reshape reality, and partner to someone who understood his flaws as strengths. One evening, watching the sun set, Sareth leaned against him. They forced you to marry a monster, she said softly. Elias kissed her glowing brow. They forced me to marry the love of my life. She smiled, fully this time. And for the first time in Valkyrie history, the stars above their world shone steady and bright. Not because the curse was gone, but because it was finally understood. The Concord called it an anomaly, a statistical impossibility, a mistake that should be corrected. But mistakes don't rewrite the rules of physics. Sereth and Elias did. In the months that followed the failed separation order, the galaxy watched in uneasy silence as Valkyra transformed. The unstable fault zones around the planet, once worsened by Sereth's emotional fluctuations, began to stabilize entirely. Storm systems calmed. Tectonic drifts slowed. Even orbital decay corrected itself in places where no technology should have been able to interfere. The truth was undeniable. The princess they had called cursed was now functioning as a living stabilizer for her world. And the human she had been forced to marry was the anchor that made it possible. Delegations arrived daily. Scientists begged for access. Military analysts demanded contingency plans. Philosophers argued whether the bond between Elias and Sereth constituted a new form of life altogether. Elias ignored most of it. He spent his days walking the city streets with her, streets that had once been forbidden to her existence. The people still stared, still whispered, but the fear was changing. Fear was giving way to awe. And awe, Elias had learned, was the first step toward acceptance. One evening, as Valkyra's twin suns dipped below the horizon, Sereth stood on a balcony overlooking the capital. Her glow was steady now, no fractures, no flicker. For the first time in her life, her light wasn't restrained. "You know," she said quietly, "when I was a child, I used to imagine what freedom would feel like." Elias leaned beside her. And she exhaled, something between a laugh and a sigh. "I was wrong. I thought it would be loud, explosive, like breaking chains." She turned to him, eyes soft. "It's quiet. It's standing here without being afraid of myself." Elias reached for her hand. She took it easily, naturally, no surge of power, no distortion of reality. Just warmth. The final test. Peace never comes without a cost. The remnants of the Concord, unwilling to lose control, made one last attempt to reclaim authority. A covert strike force slipped through Valkyra's outer defenses under the guise of a diplomatic envoy. Their goal was simple: remove the human, break the balance, let the curse reassert itself. They underestimated two things. First, Sereth was no longer alone inside her own power. Second, Elias Mercer had survived wars precisely because he knew when not to fight. When the strike came, it wasn't chaos that answered, it was control. Sereth felt the attack before alarm sounded. The relic stirred, eager, violent. For a fraction of a second, the old fear tried to return. Then Elias touched her shoulder. "I'm here," he said. That was enough. Instead of unleashing destruction, Sereth folded space, redirected energy, neutralized weapons without detonations. The attackers found themselves suspended in stasis fields, unharmed and utterly powerless. The galaxy watched the footage in stunned silence. The cursed princess had just ended a military incursion without a single death. The Concord dissolved within the year. Not with a war. With embarrassment. What they became. Time passed differently after that. Valkyra became neutral ground for interspecies mediation. Conflicts that had lasted centuries were brought before Sereth, not because she was feared, but because she understood imbalance better than anyone alive. Elias became her counterpart in every sense. Where she spoke in resonance and emotion, he spoke in pragmatism and empathy. Where her presence could overwhelm, his steadied the room. Diplomats began calling them a dual authority, a paired constant. Together, they weren't rulers. They were proof. Proof that strength didn't require domination. Proof that humanity's chaos, its contradictions, its emotional volatility, its refusal to fit neatly into galactic models, wasn't a flaw. It was compatibility. The last night of the old world. Years later, long after the title Cursed had become a historical footnote, Elias found Sereth standing alone beneath the stars again. "Penny for your thoughts," he said. She smiled faintly. "I was thinking about the day we met. You looked so out of place in that hall." He chuckled. "I felt it." "You stepped forward when you didn't have to," she said. "Why?" Elias thought for a moment, then shrugged. "Everyone else saw a weapon or a problem. I saw someone who wasn't being given a choice." She turned fully toward him now. "And do you ever regret it?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took her hands, hands that once could unravel reality. Now they were just hands. "No," he said softly. "They forced me into a marriage meant to be a sacrifice." He met her eyes. "But I chose to stay." Sereth's glow brightened. Not violently, not uncontrollably. Just warm. Just right. Epilogue. The legend that remained. Galactic historians would later debate the moment the age of fear truly ended. Some would point to wars won or empires fallen. Others would point to treaties signed on Valkera beneath twin suns. But among the younger races, the story spread more simply. There was once a princess the galaxy tried to bury. There was once a human who refused to walk away. They were forced together to contain a curse. Instead, they discovered balance. And in doing so, they proved something the galaxy had never understood before. Some forces aren't meant to be controlled. They're meant to be shared.